big question people are asking, is this wise? Let's make it clear. Every human being's life is precious, is divine, is sacred. So therefore, when you see hostages who were taken for no reason, completely innocent civilians, men, women, little children, orphans now, so of course we celebrate that they're able to go back, be reunited with their, hopefully, loved ones, families. Some will just begin the healing now, but at least they're out of the clutches of those savages that kidnapped them in the first place. So there's one thing we all agree, once you see that, you see that. The question is, in the bigger scheme of things, is this going to embolden, is this going to incentivize the enemy by saying, look, you know what, hostages are leverage. What I find infuriating personally, and I need to share this, is the imbalance here. On October 7th, atrocities were perpetrated, war crimes of the worst sort. That's already not being talked about. Then hostages were taken. So as if it's now like some type of two sides. Okay, we're doing you a favor, we're giving you back hostages. You should never have taken them in the first place. And the world should be clamoring, should be demanding, return all the hostages. What is this partial return? Every one of them should be sent home. That's part of the crime here. So I understand the value of getting a few of them, especially the children, the elderly, the women. But the whole thing is the morality of this is like completely skewed. That should be the demand. Absolutely every hostage. Why even agree for partial? And if not, there's a war. You either will be eradicated or total unconditional surrender. World War II. While Berlin was being bombed, the Germans would give out a statement and say, if you stop bombing us for 4 days, we'll give you 100 or 1,000 Jews from concentration camps. What would the Allies do? Now, this doesn't take away from those lives. Of course we want those. Not to mention, of course, the tens of thousands, the hundreds of thousands, the millions that were still remained or were already killed. But what would they do? This is a war. There's no such thing as you dictating terms. You want a full surrender, completely surrender. We're not stopping fire. You want to completely surrender, complete surrender, and the winner will dictate the terms. If Hamas surrendered completely, gave up all the hostages, then we'll tell you what the terms are. So I'm not sure, from a military point of view, where this is going to end up, because now, why would they not continue to dangle these hostages and buy more time, and the price will go up? I really hope I'm wrong, that Israel can resume what it has to do, but I'm not sure of the bigger wisdom here. Again, fully understanding and appreciating the sanctity of the lives, and thank God that they are now safe after what they went through. So I'm not minimizing that. I'm not suggesting it's easy decisions to make as well. When you have a situation, a country that feels like one family, and the degrees of separation are so few. So I fully understand. And I don't envy anyone to be in that position. But we have to also talk about what consequences can be. Now, I know this may not be the spiritual side, but it is in a way, because we're talking about, ultimately, this is a war not just of damage control. It's a war of eradicating some certain evils. The world had joined together came to ISIS. There's certain brutalities that simply are not acceptable. And that must be eradicated. Or, as I said, complete, absolute, unconditional surrender, return all the hostages, remove all the references to extermination and killing of Israel or Jews or whatever you want to call it. There are ways that we can call for surrender. And I say it because really the issue here is about a certain moral certitude. If you're not sure about something, I understand you negotiate because every side has something to say. But there are certain things that are certain here. I understand people will say, what do you mean, civilians being killed in Gaza? Nobody's celebrating civilians being killed in Gaza. But it's the inevitability of a people, Hamas, a minority, let's even call them a minority. The Nazis were also a minority, but have taken control. But if they allowed all the Gazans at least temporary refuge somewhere, and they want to fight like men, man to man, so fight. But they're hiding behind children, their own children, and of course behind these hostages. So you're dealing here with a situation where we have to wake up to what is moral, what is right, and what is wrong. And not just come away with, okay, there's two sides to every story. There may be two sides to a story, but there's certain atrocities that are not acceptable, period. I don't have any doubts on that matter. So nobody wants to see children killed, not Arab children, not Muslim children, not Jewish children, not Israeli children. Nobody wants to see that. But you have to look at who initiated this, who provoked it, and how they're perpetuating to make sure. So it's not an accident when the Al-Shifa hospital was taken over by the Israelis, now that there's discussion about this, because they close in, they want to save their lives at the expense of everyone around them. So to me, this is a moral discussion here. And it's spiritual in another sense, because some of this distorted behavior, distorted is a mild word, abusive behavior, worse, obscene behavior, is somewhere rooted in some type of, in their minds, divine plan that it's the Muslim world that has to control Israel. And Jews cannot control it. For them, that's sacrilegious. That's a desecration. So there's a lot to say, and I also don't want to be in a position of second guessing. I don't know all this, what's going on behind the scenes. I'm just speaking as an observer and trying to make sense of it all, as all of us are trying to do. But I will say, again, on the spiritual front, to see people coming out of captivity and to see the celebration is beautiful. To see the unity, the continuing spiritual fortitude of so many coming together, their declaration of faith, which of course gives you that absolute conviction in what is right, and that you're fighting the right fight, and not to fight on an offensive way to hurt someone, to defend what we all cherish most. And ultimately, victory, as I've been repeating time and again, is not about the destruction of the enemy. Is the construction, is the building of a better world. A better world where real values, respect people's diversity, respect different approaches, even disagreements, but with dignity, with sanctity. God created his children in all colors and shapes and sizes and forms, each expressing the divine music in another way. So it's high time that we learn how to play the cosmic symphony. That's the ultimate goal. But unfortunately, we live in a dark world. We live in a world, to use the words of the mystic, the great Isaac Lurianic, secret of tzimtzum, of concealment. But concealment is not just concealment. Concealment creates and can create all the distortions where we can deceive ourselves into thinking that we're not all part of one larger organism, and that when one person is hurting, everyone else is hurting. Our job is to pierce through that concealment, to reveal the integral and inherent and intrinsic truth and unity that lies within all of existence. I understand it sounds very noble and highfalutin when we're dealing with real life and death, but that is ultimately what we're seeking. And unfortunately, there are forces in this world, through terrible choices or ignorance or brainwashing or whatever you want to call it, are living a different path. We'd rather they wouldn't. That's where the ultimate war is going to be, regardless. When this is all over, how will the next generation of children growing up in Gaza, in other Arab Muslim countries, what will they be taught? Will they continue to be taught the hatred? Will they continue to be taught this type of doctrine? That's where the real battles will be. So there's some thoughts that come to me as we're talking about the whole picture. But being that royal, or maybe you can say suffering optimist, at the end of the day, I have no doubt that the end will be good. That there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not the light of the oncoming train. And what does that mean, the light at the end of the tunnel? That the human race and human civilization will come to a point where violence and war will be completely eliminated, because the world will be filled with divine knowledge as the waters cover the sea. So I've dedicated my life, and I hope you dedicate your life, to doing everything possible to spread that divine knowledge. And this emphasis, divine knowledge, not just knowledge. Knowledge, we know, can be used for great things. It can also be used for destructive purposes. There were great scientists and great philosophers and thinkers in Nazi Germany and in other fascist regimes that use their wisdom, they use their knowledge to destroy. Divine knowledge means humble knowledge, to understand that intelligence and human intelligence, which is perhaps our greatest asset, is not about understanding things. It's about appreciating a reality greater than ourselves. It's about appreciating a reality that's not driven by self-interest, by arrogance and power and control. It's an intelligence that leads us to a place where we realize that we're part of something beyond us, which of course always comes hand in hand with true humility. That's what true knowledge is. And if you look at the historical trajectory, yes, things have become more refined. We have more refined and higher standards. Is it perfect? Obviously far from perfect. I mean, all you have to do is look around, look what's happening. But to suggest that no progress has been made is incorrect. It's not like we're back to square one, to the savagery of ancient times or Middle Ages, as it was then. But we still have pockets, or bigger than pockets. And when you see it in front of your eyes, it becomes prominent. But we have to remember the bigger picture as well. So our goal is to expose the evil, to expose the bad choices, not to cover up for it, and not to minimize it, and not to excuse it, because that doesn't do any service to anyone. The whole point is let it reveal its ugly head, whether it's hatred, whether it's racism, whether it's anti-Semitism, whether it's the call for the destruction of Israel and the Jewish people. Let's see it for what it is, and either eradicate it or transform these people. And there are ways to do that, as I said. Total surrender. That's the goal. And if not surrender, total eradication. And hopefully what will come from it will be people who will realize that's not the way. That there are other ways to respect others. This holding on to narratives just to be right and feeling that that's the only thing you'll do. A zero-sum game is not going to work. So I'm not suggesting anyone is perfect. We all have our flaws. So some other items from the spiritual warfront is that I can share with you. I see this all the time. I've seen a surge unprecedented in people's reaching out to each other, a kindness, a gentleness, a sensitivity that is rare. Now we all hope it'll stay that way. And it shouldn't just be as a result of tragedy or grief or crisis. But you see it, and that is a demonstration of the nobility of the human spirit, of the dignity of the divine image in which we were created. So I say to you and I say to myself, we have to capitalize on it, which means respond to that call within ourselves, within others, to be proactive, to reach out, to join, to find ways where we can commune. We give each other strength in that fashion. And whether that comes down to volunteerism, charity, just plain communion and connection, there's so many ways that today, especially with technology, where we can demonstrate our commonality, our love, which will always be more powerful than the darkness. But darkness is the absence of light. If you don't shine the light, darkness will prevail and will seem that it's more powerful. Bring light in and darkness dissipates. More light, the less darkness. As I've been doing each week, but also look into the Bible in the narrative of the Bible, which very much parallels the events of our times. The confrontations, firstly in the tent and home of Abraham, between his two children, Isaac and Ishmael, respectively the ancestors of the Jewish people. I should go Ishmael and Isaac because Ishmael was older. The respective ancestors of the Arab Muslim world and the Jewish people. And then in the next generation, the children of Isaac, his twin sons, Esau and Jacob. Again, respectively, Esau, the ancestor of the Western, Roman Christian world. And Jacob, again, a son of Isaac, the forefather of the Jewish people. But they're at odds with each other. Two nations, we read a few weeks ago, two nations at each other's throats. They cannot coexist. But now comes a dramatic moment. 20 years later, after Jacob escaped the wrath of his brother Esau, and he went off to his uncle and got married and built a family, he now returns to Israel. Of course, what's on his mind, and all our minds, is what's going to happen with his brother Esau. Is he still angry? Does he still want vengeance? Is he still ready to kill Jacob? So Jacob sends messengers to his brother to see. And they come back with a report that Esau is marching with 400 men. Clearly, he was not ready to make peace. So Jacob prepares in three ways. He prays to God for help, for salvation. He prepares a bribe to appease his brother Esau. And he prepares for war. That's the wise approach. You cover all your bases. You don't know what's going to work. And we need all of them. We need the spiritual prayer, we need the physical war, and we may need also to maneuver. Sometimes you can appease someone. In this case with Jacob, actually the first two worked. The prayer and the appeasement were enough. He didn't have to go to war. But the story continues. The classics, but they're also cryptic. But when you start reading into them, you start realizing their power. And what's the story? Jacob sees, so he realizes he has to protect his family, seeing that his brother is going to war with him, is ready to go to war. So he crosses over the river, splits them into different camps, but goes back for some final details, remains that still remain back there. As he goes back, he encounters the strange man, a stranger. We're not told who that stranger is. We have to read the commentaries in the Zohar and other places, who basically say the stranger was the angel of Esau, his guardian angel. And what happens? Of course, they begin to wrestling with the angel. Jacob is wrestling with the angel of his brother. And they wrestle all night. And the angel cannot prevail over Jacob. As the dawn breaks and the morning comes, the angel says to Jacob, "Let me go. I have to go back to do my duties." Jacob says, "No, I'll let you go if you bless me. If you bless me." And the angel says, "What's your name?" He says, "Jacob." He says, "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, shall be Israel." That's where the first name Israel, the country, the land of Israel comes from, and the people of Israel. Why? Because you've battled, Israel, Yisrael in Hebrew, you've battled, you've wrestled with men and with God, and you have prevailed. But, not to be outdone, the angel leaves him with a wound. He displaces his hip. So everybody wonders, what is going on and what's the story? So briefly, the story is this: the dark night, when they wrestle, is the darkness of this world, the darkness of exile, the darkness of dissonance, where we're not aligned with our purpose, we're not aligned with our divine calling. And therefore there are these battles. And the battle lasts all night because it's dark, it's night. But then the dawn will come. The dawn will be the dawn of redemption, when the world will come to peace with its calling, with its mission, with its destiny. But Jacob, representing the forces of transcendence and spirit, says to the angel, "I will not let you go. I need you to bless me." Because he wanted the darkness should bless him. the forces of the negative forces should bless him. And he blesses him. He says, you have the power to prevail even over angels, even over people. You have power. And that's the name of Israel. The power to reveal even in the darkness light. But because it's still dark, so he's not left untouched. Jacob's hip is dislocated. As the commentaries explain, that represents all the dislocations, all the wounds, all the injuries, all the oppression that all good men and women would suffer throughout the ages. Every one of these hostages, the 1,400 who were massacred on October 7th, all is a result of that angel displacing Jacob. He could not prevail over him, but he could cause enough problems. So when we see pain in the world, we have to realize it's part of the consequences of a dissonance between the divine and existence. It only compels us even more to bring even more light into this world. And what happens next? Jacob returns to his family, and then he meets Esav. And here we go, the drama of the moment. What will happen when these two brothers meet? So we're told that Esav embraces and kisses and hugs his brother. There are two opinions, because there are dots over the word Vayishakeh when he hugs him and kisses him and embraces him. There are two opinions. Some say that he, even though he was ready to go to war, but when he saw his brother, his heart melted. And he had compassion. For that moment, he completely embraced him. Some say it was not complete. He had ulterior motives, but he was not going to war. Either way, there was some type of reconciliation. So he says to his brother Jacob, listen to this. Now that we've met, why don't we come and live side by side? Now Jacob, before he had recognized that Esav was ready to go to war, had hoped and suspected and was hopeful that Esav indeed was ready to live side by side and were ready to go to complete reconciliation. But he realized that's not the case. So he tells his brother, you go ahead, my brother. I will come slowly. The children are young. The sheep are tender. So what was he saying to him? Just buying time? No, so we're told, the commentaries explain to us, no. He was saying, you go ahead. There's more work to be done. We will ultimately totally reconcile in the Messianic age, the end of times. He realized there's still battles to be fought. So my friends, we have the story of our times. The battles, the confrontations between nations, between ideologies. Clash of civilizations, as some have coined it. Between Islam, Judaism, Christianity. Clash of civilizations. But the end story is going to be total reconciliation. But it's appreciating understanding the deeper spiritual story here. It's the story of making peace between what God wants and the world in which we live. Not allow your own self-interest, your own ego, even your religious ego to get in the way. I know it sounds, again, idealistic, naive even. But that's ultimately the goal. That's ultimately what the calling has to be. You believe in God, you believe in Allah. Go back to Abraham. What do you think Abraham taught us to do? To love each other. Why should there be any bloodshed? Why should there be any such hatred? So we have to march forward and continue with that resolve. Goes back to Abraham's times, and we will continue and ultimately prevail. Hopefully, people come along peacefully. Those that don't want to and go to war and attack will have to be dealt with, unfortunately. The hope is they will see the light at some point. But before that, you have to eradicate, just like you have to eradicate Nazism. There was no way around it. No one's happy about that, but that's the reality. So when I look into the biblical story and I share it, to me, it's the story where this is unfolding. That ultimately, the Esavs and the Jacobs of this world will ultimately make peace. Real peace. Meanwhile, we do the best we can, and we hopefully can eliminate any more pain and really come to a point where spirit prevails over matter. The concept that the Jewish people, the Christians, fell out of favor with God, and therefore the Muslims have to control the world, including, of course, the Promised Land. No, that's not how it works. Here's what I, as a Jew, will teach you a few things. Serve God your way. You don't have to force others to serve in your way. That's why in Judaism you don't find an expectation, a hidden expectation to convert people. Because you can connect to God exactly as you are. You don't have to be Jewish to connect to God. It's actually a sign of some insecurities that you have to be like me. No, you can be you. And connecting to God means, yes, the first thing God loves is peace. The first thing God loves is peace among his children. That's what we are fighting for. And we cannot afford to be complacent with all that has gone on. So my friends, this is where we're at in the spiritual battle. I would like to be able to report and say that all hostilities are over. I can't say that yet. But I could say that there are many of us that carry a vision of a better world, carry a vision of a godly world, a world aligned with a purpose for which it was created. And we will continue to fight for that, while at the same time we have to fight the evil. There's no way around that. I wish we could just be bringing good into the world, but there's people who are ready to kill. They're ready to kill you for what you believe. They're ready to kill you if you're not like them. They're ready to kill you if you're named a Jew or some other name that they don't like. That's a reality that we have to accept. So we fight that battle out of necessity, but the main thing is not just stopping the bleeding, it's transformation. A world filled with divine knowledge as the waters cover the sea. That will bring ultimate peace, an ultimate understanding, an ultimate coexistence of a diversity living in harmony. Everyone be blessed and be well. God bless all those that are fighting for the good cause, all innocent men, women, and children. And may this come to an end quickly, painlessly. May all the hostages be released, and may our moral compass shine and not become clouded or rusty or hazy to understand what is right and what is wrong, even when there are different opinions. God bless you. This has been Simon Jacobson speaking. Meaningful Life Center, meaningfullife.com. Check out our website, meaningfullife.com/Israel at War. You will find a whole array of constantly updated materials, videos, programs, articles. Love to hear your feedback, thoughts, comments, suggestions, and please share and subscribe to our growing YouTube channel. Be well and be blessed. Thank you.